العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So inshallah we continue from where we stopped earlier. We are at page 165. So the author mentioned وَيَقُولُ فِيهَا اللَّهُمَّ إِنَّكَ عَفُوٌ تُحِبُّ الْعَفْوَ فَاعْفُ عَنِّي. Yani this is dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us when we coincide with Laylatul Qadr. So any one of the dua in the verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for forgiveness. Then he mentioned وَيَكْتُمُهَا, that he hides it. And if you happen to know that tonight is Laylatul Qadr, it is a sunnah for you to hide, not any to make announcement. Sunnah you need to hide, because this is the prophetic way, tiba. Sometimes some people are blessed with knowledge of Laylatul Qadr. There are people, for example, they see any light in the horizon, so they know that today is Laylatul Qadr, and that is a bonus. Imam Nawawi is one of them. Imam Nawawi, one of his miracles is that he knows when is Laylatul Qadr. So if Laylatul Qadr, and he see light everywhere brightness. When he was young, he was blessed with this miracle. So his family will look out for him on the last 10 days, see whether is there any reaction from him, since he was young like that. Certain people are blessed with this. Then he mentioned وَيُحْيِيهَا وَيُحْيِي يَوْمَهَا وَكَلَيْلَتِهَا وَيُحْيِيهَا. Yani when a person is at the last 10 nights of Ramadan, last 10 days of Ramadan, and especially on the nights of Laylatul Qadr, it is a sunnah you need to make it alive by making ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to make i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan. So we try our best. So this coming Ramadan, for example, we have to plan now. How are we able to spend our nights in Ramadan, especially the last 10 nights, so that we get any part of the blessing. Part of the blessing that we can attain the last 10 nights. And I believe this year mosques are open to i'tikaf. Allahu alam, we do not know whether they really allow or don't allow, because up to date the mosques in Singapore do not allow any sleeping over. But Allahu alam, it's coming Ramadan, I do not know whether things are going to change. But if it is, then it will be better for a lot of us. Now, then he mentioned kalailatiha, yani likewise with the day also, it is a sunnah for us to enliven the day with ibadah, recitation of the Quran, and observing jama'ah prayers. All these things while fasting will boost our spirituality. So the month of fasting is the month of tazkiyah, the month of tarbiyah, for our nafs. So it is important for us to put in efforts. Wa yahgumul wisal fi sawm. Al wisal meaning you fast without breaking the fast. You fast 1-2 days, for example, then you break your fast. This is not permissible. This is called wisal. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he does wisal. The Prophet he can fast 3 days straight without breaking fast. This is wisal. And some of the Sahaba tried to do and they fainted. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited us from wisal. And then when he was asked, why did he do wisal, he said, "At'amani Rabbi wa saqani." Allah give me food and drink. Prophets are different. Prophets can stand not eating and drinking for 40 days. They can fast 40 days straight. But today, normal human being, straight away, inna lillahi inna ilaihi raji'un. Correct, pass away. But the Anbiya, Allah gave them the strength of 100 people, 100 men. The strength of the Prophet ﷺ is 100 men. Imagine. This is the strength of the Prophet ﷺ. Nobody is stronger than the Prophet ﷺ, even in his physique. So that is why there is in Shama'il, and there is a hadith about what? Wrestling, right? There is this top wrestler in Arabia. I forgot the name, Rukan or something in his name. So he thought that he is the strongest man in Arabia. Nobody and he can beat him. The undefeated heavyweight. Then he said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Muhammad, if you can beat me in wrestling, I embrace Islam. And he confident. So the Prophet ﷺ starts to wrestle with him. With one touch, he was thrown off. With one touch, and he was thrown off from the place of wrestling. So he was shocked. He said, what is this? He embraced Islam. Shadu Allah ilaha illallah, shadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. So he said, this is not normal human being. Nobody, and he can even, push me into the ground, but I was thrown off the ground. This is the strength of the Prophet ﷺ. That is why in battles, what happened? The Sahaba seek refuge with the Prophet ﷺ. Understand? The Sahaba, they say that if the battle become intense, you know what they do? They go behind the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet, and he will be the first in battle. This is bravery. And he is the best in terms of swordsman. In terms of riding a horse. Nobody rides horses better than the Prophet ﷺ. Riding camels. Using any of the archery and all these things that with regard to battles, nobody can beat the Prophet ﷺ. If you read the Shama'il of the Prophet ﷺ, he is the best in everything. And this is a speciality Allah gave to him. Then the author mentioned Faslun wa yajibul kafara. Now the author is going to speak about kafara, expiation. This is with regard to if a person does sexual intercourse in the day of Ramadan. If a person does sexual intercourse intentionally, knowingly, khalas, we say kafara. You have to pay the kafara. So this is the chapter the author is going to speak about. So he said that kafara is wajib ala man afsada sawma Ramadan bil jima' walau fi duburin wa bahimatin. Even if he, na'uzubillah min zalik, go in by the anal. He does sexual intercourse and he does any anal sex basically. There is kafara. And even if he does it with animals. There are certain human beings until today. They have any sexual intercourse with animals. Until today, there are people like this. But the time that we are living, ajib, there are people who have sex with dolls now. Even with dolls. So they make a doll, and then they don't get married. So that is the place where they become sexually aroused. This is ajib, akhir zaman. So I think BBC came out with a documentary, doll brothel or something. Like they go to this place, like the whole building full of dolls. So they have to pay. So the dolls are designed in a way like real people. And it becomes a good business. I do not know, this in Europe, in Eastern Europe I think. It becomes good business and people are coming. La ilaha illallah. But to us it doesn't make sense. Correct? But it is happening. What about with animals? So all these things are happening. So even if he does sexual intercourse with animals, kafara. He has to pay the kafara. La ala al-mar'a. So for the woman there is no kafara. The kafara is on the man. The kafara is on the man. But both their fasting it becomes invalid. Wala man jama'a nasiyan aw mukrahan. Unless if a person forgot, I am fasting. Okay, you are forgiven. Luckily. You forgot. But if you intentionally do it, then there is kafara. Or mukrah. Mukrah is someone who is forced. Somebody comes and you have a gun. He says, if you don't do this sexual intercourse, I kill you. So he does sexual intercourse. Forgiven. No kafara. This is the meaning of mukrah. But again, last week I spoke about the conditions of ikra. Conditions in your force, correct? Not everybody who is false and he will say valid. It depends. وَلَا عَلَى مَنْ أَفْسَدَ صَوْمَ غَيْرِ رَمَضَانِ. Those any who does not any fast, for example, they have sexual intercourse while fasting, but other than Ramadan, there is no kafara. For example, a person is doing the Monday and Thursday fast, and then he break in his fast by doing sexual intercourse while fasting. Is there kafara? There is no kafara. Why? Kafara is specifically for Ramadan. Remember this. Other than Ramadan, there is no kafara. وَلَا عَلَى مَنْ أَفْطَرَ بِغَيْرِ جِمَاعٍ. But if a person, for example, he break any his fast other than sexual intercourse, there is no kafara. There is no kafara, for example, if a person break his fast by eating and drinking. No kafara. Kafara is only pertaining to the person who breaks any his fast, yani by sexual any intercourse. وَلَا عَلَى الْمُسَافِرِ وَالْمَرِيضِ إِنْ زَنَيَا. This is a good example. The author mentioned, what about any musafir and the sick person? We mentioned that musafir can break fast, correct? No? So now a musafir wants to break his fast. He doesn't want to fast. And he does sexual intercourse. Is there kafara upon musafir? Can you see the logic here? The author is saying, if a musafir in Ramadan break his fast by sexual intercourse, is there kafara? There is no kafara. Why? Because fasting is not obligatory for him. Fasting is not obligatory for him. Just like the sick person. The sick person, fasting is not obligatory for him. He does sexual intercourse, no kafara. Because there is no obligation. There is no obligation. So kafara is upon any people who are obliged. People who are obliged to fast. And then he mentioned, وَإِنْ زَنَا. Even if they do zina. Musafir does zina, na'uzubillah min dhalik, in Ramadan. But he's a musafir. He went to Thailand, for example, to visit his family members. Good cause. Musafir. But then he does any zina. Is there kafara? There is no kafara. Even the author mentioned, وَإِنْ زَنَيَا. Even both of them, this musafir and the sick person. Because since when we say fasting is not obliged for them, they can break their fast. If they can break their fast, there is no kafara. If they perform any zina, of course they sin for zina. We're not saying it's okay for them to perform zina. We say zina is kabair, major sin. But here we are asking the question, is there kafara? Is there kafara? If he break his fast, there is no kafara. Because why? In the first place, he is not obliged to fast. وَلَا عَلَى مَنْ ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ لَيْلٌ فَتَبَيَّنَ نَهَارٌ. And there is no kafara upon those who break their fast by thinking that the night has come. That it is still at night time. But actually the day has come. What does it mean? For example, a person now, for example, Fajr is at 5:30 a.m. So they do sexual intercourse at 5 a.m. Half an hour before Fajr. And then they thought that it is still at night time. So this is not applicable nowadays. And if a person has to pay kafara, no such thing as freeing a slave. Last time they are slaves. You go to the market, slave market. You buy a slave and you free the slave. This is point number one. He said, "Itqu raqabatin mu'minatin." The slave must be mu'mina, must be a believer, Muslim. You cannot free a slave a non-Muslim. So you must go to the market and you have to select. Are you Muslim or not Muslim? Slave master say, yeah, this is a Muslim. Salima min al-uyub. There must be no shortcoming in the body. Not a slave that is blind, or a slave that has got no hand, but a slave salim. Salim here meaning the physical body is what we call it, healthy basically. So this is the condition that it must be a believing slave, and the physical body must be healthy. Not someone that cannot do work. For example, if you free a slave that got no hand, now the value of the slave is below. Correct or not? If a slave has no hand, meaning he cannot carry things. Cannot. you have any to free any slave that is free any from all these ailments. Allati tukhillu bil amal. So the shortcoming any is that it will make him less being able to work. Clear, inshallah? This is also important. You see, when we speak any about this, imagine you go to the slave market. You want to buy a slave. So the condition is that the slave must be a believer and the physical body must be good. But we only look at the aspect of working. But if the appearance is not nice, this is not any within any that condition. It is not any condition that the slave must be good looking. But this is mukhil bil amal. In terms of work, we ask the question: can the slave do work or cannot do work? If the slave can do work, yes, it's enough. But if the shortcoming is in the appearance or the shortcoming in the skin color, for example, Islam do not say that you must free, for example, a slave that is white color that is fair, for example. No such thing. So the shortcomings that our scholars are speaking about is shortcoming in terms of amal. This is what the author mentioned. Alladhi yukhilu bil amal. Clear? Like if a slave is blind, for example, this is bukhil bil amal. And if a blind slave how he wants to do work, if the slave doesn't have any hand, or a slave is handicapped, for example, how can he do work? So all these things cannot be valid. فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ صَامَ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. If a person doesn't have slaves, and nowadays we don't speak any about slaves, then he has to fast 2 months continuously. 2 months. 2 months continuously. He cannot be like, okay, I take Monday and Thursdays and every week. No, it's not like that. Every day, straight, 2 months. For young people, no problem, and it can be done. Unless a person is old, sickly, then difficult. Then they can go to the third one. And all these things is based on sequence. If you are able to fast, you cannot go to the third one. If you are able to fast, you must fast. And if you are, for example, if a person, 25 years old, we say, wajib for you to fast, wajib for you, because you have the ability to fast. If you have the ability to fast, you cannot give up food. You have to fast. 2 months straight. 2 months straight, yes?
2 months is 60 days?
No, it's not like that. Meaning, you see, 2 months based on the Islamic calendar. 2 months based on the Islamic calendar. If you fast, for example, in the beginning of Rajab, for example, you end at the end of Sha'ban. So because you see, months in Islam, sometimes it is 29, sometimes 30 days. So if you fast 1 whole month, for example, in Sha'ban is 29 days. If you fast from the beginning of Sha'ban till the end, you have fasted 1 month. Although it is less than 30 days. Can you see it? So we base on the Islamic calendar. So if you fast, you follow the months. You follow the months. For example, you start by Sha'ban, or you start by Rajab and Sha'ban, for example. So you take Rajab and Sha'ban, it's going to be 2 months. So not necessarily 60 days. Not necessarily 60 days, because we go by the months. But it can be complicated if you fast in the middle of the month. If you start by the middle, then no choice, and you have to count how many days. So imagine you fast, for example, in the middle of Rabiul Awwal. Example, a person fasts in the middle of Rabiul Awwal. So when does he end? He fasts in the middle of Rabiul Awwal, so he ends when? Rabiul Awwal, the whole of Rabiul Akhir, he must fast. The whole of Rabiul Akhir, he must fast. And then the coming of Jamadul Awwal in the middle. But now there is a problem, because he starts in the middle. So we take the center one, Rabiul Akhir, as 1 month. Regardless, whether it's 29 days or 30 days. We take it as 1 month. And then we have to count how many days in Rabiul Awwal. How many days? Is it 14 days or 15 days? And then we have to add up with Jamadil Awwal. How many days? This one, it has to be 30 days. So, for example, if we fast 15 days in Rabiul Awwal, he has to fast 50 days in Rabiul Akhir. But when comes into the 15 days in Jamadil Awwal. But when comes into Rabiul Akhir, he take it as 1 month. Regardless whether the month is 29 days or 30 days. Clear inshallah? Likewise, when it comes to Iddatul Wafa, 4 months and 10 days. Sometimes a person pass away in the middle of the month. So how you calculate? Same thing. This is how we calculate. We regard every individual month as 1 month, regardless whether it is 29 days or 30 days. We don't, not necessarily it must be 30 days. So we don't count like 4 months, 10 days, it must be 120 days. Not necessarily 120 days. Not necessarily. Not 120 days. If you take any 1 month, it's 30 days. So 4 months, any 10 days, how many? 130 days, correct? No? 130. So not necessarily any 130, because months and some differ. Sometimes 29, sometimes 30. But what is important here is it must be continuous. It must be continuous. فَإِن لَمْ يَقْدِرْ, and the author mentioned, if he does not have capacity to do so, then only, what can he do? He said, أَطْعَمَ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا كُلَّ وَاحِدٍ مُدَّةً. He gave food to how many people? 60 miskin. Every miskin, 1 mud. What is any 1 mud? Mud and is like this. Yani, a hand that is not too big and not too small. You take the rice like this. This is any 1 mud. Okay, but now the question is, what is any the weight any of this? Maybe you can do an experiment at home and you try. Take any 1 mud and then you weigh. That is any considered to be 1 mud. So it's about 600 to 700 grams. 600 to 700 grams. So we have any to pay 1 mud any to 60 miskin. Yani every miskin any 1 mud, 1 mud, 1 mud. So 60 any miskin. This is much any easier than to fast any 2 months any continuously. But again, and we say sequence is wajib. Meaning you cannot go to number 3 unless you are unable to fast at number 2. وَتُسْقَطُ الْكَفَارَةُ بِطُرُوءِ الْجُنُونِ وَالْمَوْتِ فِي أَثْنَاءِ النَّهَارِ. Yani if a person and he becomes insane, if a person and he becomes insane at the day any of Ramadan, he became any insane. What happens when he became any insane? No kafara. Because why? Insane people, they are not any accountable. They are not accountable. You cannot tell any insane people any to fast. Fasting is not valid any from them. So if they do jima, for example, and then they become insane, no kafara. No kafara any for them, because now they are not mukallaf. They are not any mukallaf. And likewise, if a person any pass away, if a person any pass away, there is no any kafara any upon him, because now he has passed away. La bil maradi was safari, wala bil i'sar. But not any if a person in the state of sickness, because if a person in state of sickness, meaning, yani he can still pay the kafara, even though he is sick, or he is a musafir, he can pay the kafara. Then wajib any upon him. Wala bil i'sar. If a person is miskin, i'sar meaning poor. Doesn't mean any if a person is poor, we say no kafara for him. Kafara yani now becomes on his shoulders. But he can fast. He may be poor, but he can fast. So fasting and he becomes any wajib if he has the ability. If he cannot fast, and then he have to pay 60 mud to 60 miskin. But he say, I got no money, but now it's a loan. It becomes a debt. It becomes a debt. Maybe today you are miskin, tomorrow you become rich. Now and you have to pay. So it becomes a debt from you. Meaning kafara is still there. Unless if a person becomes insane, that's what the author mentioned, or a person pass away. If a person pass away, then it is forgiven. وَلِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ يُفْسِدُهُ كَفَارًا. لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ. What is the meaning? Yani kafara is based on the days. If a person does sexual intercourse, for example, in 1 day, the first day he does sexual intercourse, so we say 1 kafara. The next day he does another intercourse, 2 kafara. But in 1 day and he does 3 sexual intercourse, what happens? How many kafara? Only 1 kafara. Understand? So it is based on yawm, kulla yawm. So a person can do 10 times any, for example, sexual intercourse, but he has to pay one kafara if it is within one day. If it is one day, unless any he does any every day, then we count any kafara any per day. Faslun yajibu muddun min ghalibi qutil balad. There's some mistakes in the Arabic shakl. But basically the author is saying that it is compulsory to pay one mud min ghalib qutil balad. What is the meaning of ghalib qutil balad? Meaning the prevalent staple food that is present in a country. So in Singapore, if I ask you what is the staple food that is prevalent here in Singapore, normally in Singapore, what do people eat in a staple food? People eat rice, correct now? So we say rice is ghalib qutil balad. Even though there are people in Singapore who eat bread, there are people in Singapore that don't eat rice. Every day chapati naan. They cannot eat rice. So do we take into consideration that this is a staple food of Singapore? No, this is a minority. Maybe any 1 million any people like this, maybe like 100 people like that. So the vast majority eat rice. So we have to pay rice and not flour. So in Singapore, we have to pay rice. But if you are in Delhi, then you cannot pay rice. Because down there it is totally is opposite. Down there people don't eat rice. Correct or not? Do you know that in Delhi people don't eat rice? I only know this when I go there. I didn't know that Indians don't eat rice until I went to Delhi. La ilaha illallah. I cannot find rice. You cannot find rice in Delhi. Unless you go to a restaurant, like a high class restaurant, okay, you can buy rice. Nobody sell rice in the streets. Nobody sell rice. We were finding for rice. Everywhere you go, chapati naan. That is basically the food down there. But it surprised us because it's India, correct? No? But when you go to Tamil Nadu, the opposite. Everybody eat rice. Everybody eat rice and it's everywhere. Even you go to the shops in Tamil Nadu, in Malay we call it makan pukul mati. You know pukul mati? You go into the shop, they give you free this additional rice. If they see you finishing any of the rice, they will just pour rice on your plate. Say free, majan. This is the culture, the Indian culture in the south end of India. But if you go to the north, then it is the opposite. You cannot find rice down there. No pukul mati down there. Either you eat chapati or naan. Otherwise, you have to go out. So this is the meaning of ghalib qutil balad. Wa yusrafu ila al-fuqara'i wal masakin li kulli yawm. So how you pay your fidya or kafara? You give to the miskin, the fakir. So you give. You find any miskin, you find a fakir, and then you give any per day. Yani per day meaning if you want to pay any 60 mud, then you have to give 60 any mud to the miskin and the fakir. The same goes to fidya. The same goes to fitrah. We give to the fakir and we give to the miskin. In our madhab al-Imam Shafi'i, still he has go back into ghalib qutil balad. In the prevailing judgment in our madhab, even for fitrah, we have to pay by rice. Correct or not? Then the author mentioned yukhraju min tarikati man mata wa alayhi sawm Ramadan aw ghayrihi. Yani if a person he pass away and he has not made qada, what happens? If a person he pass away and we have not paid the fidya for his fasting. Sometimes when a person is sick in the end, towards the end of the life, they don't fast the whole of Ramadan. They cannot fast. Doctors say cannot fast. Then after that they pass away. So the family members said he must pay on their behalf. Pay any fidya on their behalf. So 1 day, 1 month. 1 day, 1 month. And then if the deceased he pass away, we take any the money from his inheritance. From his inheritance. Then we have to take it from his inheritance and pay the miskin. The number of days he doesn't fast. For example, he doesn't fast for 1 month, 30 days for example. So it is 30 days of 1 month of rice. 30 days. You count for 30. Then you give to the miskin or give to the fakir. And this is wajib. Otherwise he returns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he has debts. So all these things that we as children, and we must know, especially if they are our parents, we must make sure before we give out the money based on fara'id, all these things that we must take into consideration. What are their debts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the debts to fellow men. But nowadays, any people, and they don't care about all these things. The moment their parents and they die, they look, okay, how much my mother left behind, okay. Straight away, they calculate. No, that is not the case. You have to take into consideration zakah. You have to take consideration fidya. You have to take consideration in their debt into other people. And whether they have performed hajj or have not performed hajj. Sometimes a person has the capacity to perform hajj, but does not perform hajj. So you have to take any of the money for them to do badal haji, to perform hajj any for them, and so on and so forth. وَتَمَكَّنَ مِنَ الْقَضَاءِ أَوْ تَعَدَّى بِالْفِطْرِهِ. Yani a person has the ability to make any qada, but he delays his qada until the next Ramadan comes. Now there is fidya. There is fidya. Or a person who purposely doesn't fast, and then he passes away, then we have to pay the fidya on his behalf. Because now any fasting becomes obligatory upon him and he doesn't fast. أَوْ يَصُومُ عَنْهُ قَرِيبُهُ. It is permissible for his relative to fast on his behalf. And if, for example, we ask, this is how many days he doesn't fast? 3 days. Okay, I fast for him. Clear? He said, I don't want to pay the fidya, but I want to fast. So now you fast for the disease. This is permissible. And this is Mazhab Shafi'i. Of course, there are differences amongst the fuqaha. So fasting is one of the ibadah that we can do on the behalf of the deceased. Prayers cannot. Can you pray for the deceased? Yes, deceased, how many prayers he doesn't pray? Or he doesn't pray subuh, zuhur, asar. Okay, I pray for him. No, prayers cannot. But fasting can. Hajj can. So there are certain ibadah that we can do on the behalf of the deceased. And fasting is one of it. But normally nowadays people don't fast. Correct? Just pay pay rice. Nowadays people find it any easier. Yasumu anhu qaribu aw man adina lahu al-warisu aw al-mayyit. Or a person who is given permission by the relative of the deceased, the waris, the inheritor of the deceased. We go to him, we say, I want to ask you permission, I want to fast for the deceased. Can? He say, can. Okay, fast. Must have permission. Or the deceased itself, the deceased himself, before he pass away, he say, please fast for me. The deceased. Then he pass away. We can fast on his behalf. So it must be based on permission. Not secretly any fast. We must inform the waris. وَيَجِبُ الْمُدُّ أَيْضًا عَلَى مَنْ لَا يَقْدِرُ عَلَى الصَّوْمِ لِحَرَمٍ أَوْ مَرَضٍ لَا يُرْجَبُهُ. Now, if a person, for example, the doctor say you cannot fast anymore because you have come to an old age, 90 years old. 90 years old, very dangerous to fast. They can pass away. So doctor said, please don't fast because you can pass away at any time. So in this situation, we tell him don't fast. You just pay fidya. Every day, 1 mode of rice. So if Ramadan 30 days, pay 30 days of rice. If a person is sick, the doctor says this is a serious disease. A person have disrupt kidney, dialysis. Doctor say very dangerous to fast. So don't fast. So every day you pay the mod. So Ramadan in 30 days and you pay mod in 30 days. وعلى الحامل والمرضع إذا أفطرتا خوفا على الولد مع القضاء. يعني a woman is doing breastfeeding and she doesn't fast. We ask her, why don't you fast? I fear for my child. I fear for my child. If I fast, it will affect my milk. And I fear for the infant. We say, now for you, you have to pay fidya. But if she say that I fear for myself, then no fidya. So what is the difference? You see, the principle is this. If a person does not fast for somebody else, or due to somebody else, there is fidya. But if a person does not fast because of themselves, there is no fidya. Clear, inshallah? There is only qada. But if a person does not fast due to others, there are two things. There is qada and fidya. Qada and fidya. So if a person then he says that I fear for my child and she doesn't fast, so we say you have to make qada and you have to pay fidya because you are breaking your fast not because of you but because of somebody else. Clear, inshallah. Our scholars even give this example. If a person wants to save a drowned person and he said that I cannot save until I eat something, because if I don't eat something I might also be drowned, so I eat first, then I go to save. In this situation, then you have to make qada and you have to pay fidya because you are breaking any your fast for somebody else. Clear? Because you want to save somebody else. وَعَلَى مَنْ أَفْتَرَ لِإِنْقَاذِ حَيَوَانًا. This is exactly like what I mentioned. إِنْقَاذِ حَيَوَانٍ مُشْرِفٍ عَلَى الْهَلَاكِ. For example, you see a cat. The cat is going to fall from the building. So you want to save the cat. So you have to climb. But he said that in order for me to climb, I must drink some water because otherwise dehydration, very dangerous, I might fall. I must eat something because I got a bit of headache. Got some migraine, so I must eat something, drink something. Okay, tawakkal Allah. So in this case, you what you call it, have to make qada and to pay the fidya. Even to save hayawan. What about to save human beings? Even the author mentioned to save an animal, to save an animal. So he said, the inqazi haywan mushrif al halak ma'ala man akhar al qada ila Ramadan akhar bighayri uzrin. A person and he doesn't fast in Ramadan and he does not make qada until the next Ramadan without any excuse. He can make up, but he doesn't want. So we say wajib to pay the fidya, qada and fidya. Clear, inshallah. But what happens if a person delay for 5 years? How you calculate? So if a person, for example, he doesn't fast the first year, correct? He doesn't fast one day in the first year until the next Ramadan of the second year. So we say there is one qada and fidya, one mod of rice for one day. And then he doesn't make up for the fasting until the third year. So he delay 1 year, he delay another year, 2 years and he delay. So now he becomes how many mon? 2 mon. So for every year he delays, it is double. The next year and the third year he delay again, haven't fast. Now it becomes 3 mon. And this is only for 1 day. But if a person doesn't fast for 30 days, then you do the calculation. So by the years, he has to what? It becomes double. There are people out there, they have never fasted in their whole life. But then they make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tawbatan nasuh. But what about the fidya? Tawbatan nasuh, must be fidya or no fidya is excuse? Must be fidya, no choice. So if 30 years and no fasting, mashallah, we can sit down and we can calculate. And how many qada is easy to calculate, correct or not? You just take 30 days or 29 days every year times 30. But when it comes to fidya, you have to slowly calculate, correct or not? Because it becomes double for every year. Although in the Hanafi madhab, they don't have this in the Shafi madhab. Some people say, in this case, I'm a Hanafi. Some people when it comes to this, they say, I am Hanafi. La ilaha illallah. So now we go on. So the author mentioned if there is no uzr, if there is no reason for him not to fast. But if a person is breastfeeding, you see some people, for example, they give birth just before Ramadan. Sorry. They give they do breastfeeding. In Ramadan they cannot fast because they are doing breastfeeding. For example, they are doing breastfeeding, so they don't fast in Ramadan. And then after that they became sick, for example, for many months. And then the doctor tell them they cannot fast until the next Ramadan. For this we say no fidya. Why no fidya? Because she cannot fast. Likewise, if a person is hospitalized for 3 years and the doctor tells him he cannot fast, so he cannot fast, does it mean that he has to pay the fidya? No. In this situation, there is uzr. So that is what the author mentioned. If there is no uzr, no excuse. Okay, how many minutes left? MashaAllah, 20 minutes left. So I need to speed up a little bit. The author mentioned Faslun Sawmu Tatawwu' Sunnatun wa huwa salasatu aksam. Now the author is going to speak about the sunnah fast. So there are 3 types. Number one occurs yearly. Wa huwa sawmu yawmi Arafah. Now we have the sunnah of Yawm Arafah. For those who does not perform the Hajj, sunnah to fast in Yawm Arafah. That is the 9th of Zulhijjah. One Musafir also not any sunnah for them to fast. So other than those performing Hajj and Musafir. Wa Ashri Zulhijjah, the first 9 days of Zulhijjah. Why 9 days of Zulhijjah? Because in the 10th day is what? The 10th day is Eidul Adha. You cannot fast in Eidul Adha. So the first days in Zulhijjah wa Ashura. Then we have the 10th of Muharram, the Sunnah to fast. There is a reason for the fasting. The Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to fast because that is the day Allah saved Musa alayhi from Fir'aun. And the Prophet fasted. Tasu'a, to make difference with the Jews, because the Jews also fast in Muharram, 10th of Muharram. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, if I am alive the next year, I will fast on the 9th. But he passed away after that. Wal hadi ashar min al-Muharram, likewise our fuqaha mentioned the 11th day of Muharram also sunnah for us to fast. Wasitin min Shawwal, the 6 days, and hadith of the Prophet ﷺ speaks about Siyamud Dahr, that those who fast in Ramadan and then after that 6 days in Shawwal, Allah will give them the rewards of fasting the whole year. This is the 6 days of Shawwal. Wa yusannu tawaliha wa tisaluha bil Eid. So it is a sunnah to do it continuously, meaning on the 2nd day of Shawwal all the way 6 days. This is the sunnah, the author said. وَمَا يَتَكَرَّرُ بِالشُّهُورِ, and then the monthly fast, Ayyamul Bid, the white days. The white days is 13, 14, 15 of every month. وَهِيَ الثَّالِث عَشَرْ رَابِعْ عَشَرْ خَامِسْ عَشَرْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَهْرٍ 13, 14, 15. وَالْأَيَّامُ السُّودِ وَهِيَ الثَّامِنْ وَالْعِشْرُونَ وَتَالِيَا. It is الثَّامِنْ وَالْعِشْرُونَ, and 28, 29 and 30. This is the black days. So we have the white days and black days. Why any white days? Because in the middle of the month there is a full moon. So they call it Ayyamul Bid. At the end of the month, no full moon. So this is Ayyamul Sud, the black days. Sunnah for us to fast. وَمَا يَتَكَرَّرُ بِالْأَسَابِعِ, the weekly fast. وَهُوَ الْإِثْنِينَ وَالْخَمِيسِ. The Prophet ﷺ fast Mondays and Thursdays. Was sunnah Sawmul Ashur al-Hurum, to fast in the days of the holy months. How many holy months are there? He says Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah, Muharram, Rajab. These are the 4 months. These are the holy months. Allah will multiply rewards if we fast in the holy months. وَكَذَا صَوْمُ Sha'ban. The Prophet ﷺ fast in the month of Sha'ban as a preparation for Ramadan. وَأَفْضَلُهَا al-Muharram ثُمَّ بَاقِ الْحُرُمِ. The best month to fast is the month of Muharram. And then followed by the holy months, then Sha'ban. So this is the sequence when it comes to the virtue. وَيُكْرَهُ إِفْرَادُ الْجُمْعَةِ وَالسَّبْتِ وَالْأَحَدِ. It is makruh to fast only on Friday, or only on Saturday, or only on Sunday. Why? For Friday, it is makruh to fast only on Friday, because on Friday there is Jumu'ah, and it is a sunnah for us to do any ibadah, unless if a person fasts 1 day before or 1 day after. But when it comes to Saturday, it is makruh to fast only on Saturday, because the Jews do it. The Jews fast on Sabbath. And then when it comes to Sunday, now Christians, they fast on Sunday. So it is makruh for us to fast only on that particular day, unless we fast before or after. وَالْأَفْضَلُ الصِّيَامُ صَوْمُ يَوْمٍ وَفِطْرِ يَوْمٍ. The best fasting is fast 1 day, break 1 day. This is the fast of Nabi Dawud alayhi salam. They call it Siyamud Dahr. Fast 1 day, break fast one day. Nabi Daud alayhi salam, this is what did he do? This is the fasting of Nabi Daud. Fast any one day, break fast one day. It is not a sunnah to fast every day. There are people who came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I will fast every day. So the Prophet said, I am the person who has the most taqwa to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. Sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. Meaning the Prophet does not encourage a person all the way. Because this person say, I vow to fast for the rest of my life. The Prophet said, don't do it. It is better for you to fast one day and break one day. That is fasting of Dawood, Siyamud Dahab. That is the best. So the Prophet said, فَمَنْ غَرِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Then the Prophet said, those any who are not in accordance to my sunnah, they are not from me. This is a heavy any message. Because the Prophet ﷺ, when he cared for his ummah. If the Prophet said, it is sunnah for you to fast every day, problem. Correct? Not some people say, MashaAllah, it is sunnah, fasting every day. It can lead into serious consequences after that. Then in the author he mentioned who are now we speak about i'tikaf. The rulings of i'tikaf. So now we have completed chapter of fasting. The author he mentioned the chapter of i'tikaf. He says sunnatun muakkada. It is a confirmed sunnah that is emphasized. So it is a sunnah for us to do i'tikaf every time we enter the masjid. In our madhab al-Imam Shafi'i, you have to pay attention to the word masjid. What is a masjid? What is a masjid? If I open my house, I want to make my house as a place in your prayer. Will my house becomes a masjid? If I open my house, I say, okay, I want to designate my house as a place in your prayer. 5 times daily prayers. Does it become a masjid? What makes a masjid a masjid? This is the question. What makes a masjid masjid? What makes a masjid a masjid is that when we make endowment, waqaf for musalla. Once you make a place, mawquf, endowment, specifically for prayers, now it becomes a masjid. So meaning what? Meaning now it's not your possession anymore. This belongs to the Muslims. This waqaf. But if the land is under your name, meaning like it belongs to you, then this cannot be a masjid. This is a musalla. You see, there are certain masjid, and we thought it's a masjid, but actually it's a musalla. There are places, for example, in Indonesia and in Malaysia, outwardly and you see it is a masjid. But actually the owner buy land and build a mosque, but the land is still under his name. Clear? So anytime he can demolish the mosque and build something else. So can you make i'tikaf in these places? Cannot. Why? This is not a masjid. This is a musalla. There is a difference between masjid and musalla. So our fuqaha explain what is the meaning of the place that you can make any i'tikaf. It must be mawquf. Clear, inshallah? So he said, shurutuha sab'a. So there are conditions when it comes to i'tikaf. Number 1, must be a Muslim, Islam. Non-Muslim say, nawaitu i'tikaf fi hadha al-masjid lillahi ta'ala. Not valid. I mentioned last week, all intention from non-Muslim, all not valid, correct? Not? Because they don't have iman. Al-aql must have mental consciousness, intellect. Must possess intellect. If a mad person, not valid. It's not a mukallaf. Naqa anil haidi wa nifas. For women, for example, they must not be in a state of menstruation and postnatal bleeding. They cannot enter the masjid. If they are haid, cannot enter the masjid unless they just pass by the masjid can. But they cannot enter the masjid with the intention of being inside. Wa an la yakuna junuban, not in a state of janaba. You cannot enter the masjid. Wa an yalbasa fawqa tuma'ninati salah. Minimum fawqa tuma'ninati salah. What is the meaning of tuma'ninati salah? When we say subhanallah, the time taken to say subhanallah, this tuma'ninati salah. So how many seconds is that? 1 second maybe. 2 seconds. Subhanallah. So that is the minimum duration for i'tikaf. But if a person does it very fast, like he jumped to the masjid and he jumped back, no tuma'nina, we say no i'tikaf. Although he make the i'tikaf, that is not considered to be i'tikaf because there's no tuma'nina. This is the minimum. So whenever you enter the masjid, you make the intention of i'tikaf. No problem. Even when you want to perform prayers for a few minutes, make the intention of i'tikaf, you will get the rewards of i'tikaf. If you don't make the intention of i'tikaf, you don't get the reward of i'tikaf. Wa an yakuna fil masjid. Wa an yakuna fil masjid. This is what I mentioned that just now. Wa an yakuna fil masjid. It must be inside the masjid. Wal jami' awla. Jami' is better. What is jami'? Jami' is the big mosque in the center of the city where the Jum'ah is done. That is the best. That is the best place to do i'tikaf. Jami'. Clear inshallah? So for example, if you go Singapore, we don't have like a jami'. Last time Majlis Sultan is considered to be jami'. Last time. But now all mosques have become jami'. Yani jami' basically the mosque that has Jum'ah. The mosque that has Jum'ah. Last time Singapore, not many mosques, right? So when it comes to Jum'ah, people go to Majlis Sultan. So Majlis Sultan is considered to be Masjid Jami'. Now if you go to Batu Pahat, for example, Batu Pahat, there is Jami', Masjid Jami' Batu Pahat. So when it comes to Jum'ah, all the surah, all the mosques around will be closed. No Jum'ah. Jum'ah only in this masjid. This Jami'. That is the way. That is the way. Not any way. If for example this Jami' can accommodate all the people in the city, now it's wajib for the people of the city and need to go to this masjid, and all the other mosques must close. Clear inshallah? When it comes to the Jummah prayers, we can speak about this. There's this condition that you cannot open any Jummah prayers as you wish. It depends. It depends on the number of people in the city. So it is the Mufti who is the one who dedicate which mosque has Jummah, which mosque has no Jummah. All these things is based on the number of congregants. Like places in Tarim, only 3 mosques has Jummah. But in Tarim, you have more than 100 mosques, but only 3 mosques Jummah. How come only 3 mosques any Jummah? Because why? These 3 mosques can accommodate the whole of Tarim. So it's not permissible for you to open the 4th mosque. Even though there are hundreds of, more than 100 mosques there, I think. But Singapore situation is different, and if we ask how many Muslims are needed, how many Muslims are needed, the mosques in Singapore can accommodate the Muslims, all the Muslims? The answer is yes, correct? No? The answer is yes. In Singapore we have about 70 mosques. So normally we don't have any problem. All mosques are full in Jummah. And there are people who will find place to pray Jummah, inshallah. So we got no problem in Singapore. Okay, where are we now? Wa an yanwi al-i'tikaf. The author mentioned that you must make the intention of i'tikaf. Wa yajibu niyatul fardiyya in nadharahu. If a person makes another vow, then he must make the obligatory intention. He must make the intention obligatory. Wa yujaddidu niyata bil khuruj in lam yanwi al-ruju'. Yani if a person, for example, he does any i'tikaf and he goes out of the masjid without having the intention to come back, if he comes back, then he has to make another intention. But if he goes out and he has the intention to come back, no need for him to make the intention of i'tikaf, because it is considered to be the intention. وَإِنْ قَدَّرَهُ بِمُدَّةٍ فَيُجَدِّدُهَا إِنْ خَرَجَ لِغَيْرِ قَضَاءِ الْحَاجَةِ. If a person, for example, says that I want to make i'tikaf for 5 hours in this masjid, but before 5 hours he goes out, and he goes out not for haja, he goes out shopping, and then he comes back, we say you have to start from 0. Why? Because when you go out before 5 hours, you have to start from the beginning. But if he goes out to the toilet, no problem. For example, he makes i'tikaf 1 hour. He says, I want to make i'tikaf for 5 hours, or I vow to make i'tikaf for 5 hours. After 1 hour, he goes out of the masjid. Where he is going? To the toilet. This haja. This is a necessity. So if he comes back, he can continue. But if he goes out not because of necessity, then it breaks the i'tikaf. Then he mentioned, وَإِنْ كَانَ مُتَتَابِئًا جَدَّدَهَا إِنْ خَرَجَ لِمَا يَقْطَعُ التَّتَابُعُ. Yani if it is a continuous i'tikaf, then he has to renew it if he does not continue any in the i'tikaf. Any for example, yani if a person he make the intention to do any i'tikaf consecutively for some time, but he goes out from the masjid without any reason. So every time he comes back, he must renew it. He must renew it. وَإِنْ عَيَّنَ فِي نَذَرِهِ مَسْجِدًا فَلَهُ أَنْ يَعْتَكِفَ فِي غَيْرِهِ. If a person say, I make nazar to make i'tikaf in Masjid Sultan, but then he goes to Masjid Khalid, cannot. Yani he mentioned in his vow Masjid Sultan, but he goes to Masjid Khalid, can, as long as it's a masjid. But the author says, إِلَّا الْمَسَاجِدِ الثَّلَاثَةِ. Masajid Salasa meaning Masjid Haram, Masjid Nabawi, Masjid Aqsa. If a person say, I vow to make i'tikaf in Masjid Al-Haram for 3 hours, you cannot go to Masjid Sultan. You have to wait. Book your flight, any Umrah. And then you have to go there, you have to i'tikaf for 3 hours. You cannot go anywhere else. Except the mosque that you have specified. But other than these 3 mosques, no problem. وَيَحْرُمُ الْإِعْتِكَافِ بِغَيْرِ إِذْنِ الزَّوْجِ. And if a woman doing i'tikaf, not permissible for them to do i'tikaf in the masjid without the permission of the husband. Without the permission of the husband, not permissible for a woman to go to the masjid for i'tikaf. وَالسَّيِّد. Sayyid is a master, the slave, and he wants to do i'tikaf. He must have permission from the master. وَيَبْدُلُ الْإِعْتِكَافِ بِالْجِمَاعِ. These are the things that make i'tikaf invalid. Sexual intercourse, number 1. وَالْمُبَاشَرَةُ بِالشَّهْوَةِ. Sexual arousal. In anzala, it leads to ejaculation. This breaks i'tikaf. Wabil junun, a person becomes insane. Irma, a person faints. Wal janaba, a person become in a state of junub. Ridda, apostasy. Sukr, intoxicated. All these things break the validity of i'tikaf. وَإِنْ نَظَرَ اعْتِكَافْ مُدَّةً مُعَيَّنَةً لَزِمَهُ. If a person vow for a certain period to do i'tikaf, it becomes wajib. Understood? وَيَقْطَعُ التَّتَابُعُ السُّكْرُ وَالْكُفْرُ وَتَعَمُّدُ الْجِمَاعِ. All these things breaks the i'tikaf. Breaks the continuity of i'tikaf. Because he says, I want to i'tikaf for 5 hours. But then he becomes intoxicated or apostate or does sexual intercourse. Now, what do you call it? He breaks the i'tikaf. He must start from the beginning. وَتَعَمُّرُ الْخُرُوجِ مِنَ الْمَسْجِدِ لَا لِقَضَاءِ الْحَاجَةِ. That's what we mentioned. He goes out for the masjid not because of haja, because of something else. He have to pay back. وَلَا أَكْلٍ وَلَا شُرْبٍ إِن تَعَذَّرَ الْمَاءُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. When it comes to eating and drinking, no problem. This is considered to be a necessity. He can continue the i'tikaf if there is no water in the masjid. وَلَا لِلْمَرَضِ إِنْ شَقَّ لُبْسُهُ فِيهِ أَوْ خَشْيَ تَلْوِيثَهُ. Likewise, it is forgiven for sick people. And if they say that I cannot stay long in the mosque, I have to go out, to go to the doctor. Say, go doctor. This is a necessity. Correct or not? Or a person he's having sickness and he's fear that he dirty the masjid. He has to go out in the masjid. This is a necessity. وَمِثْلُهُ الْجُنُونَ وَالْإِغْمَاءُ. And likewise, becoming mad and fainting. All these things breaks i'tikaf. وَلَا إِنْ أُكْرِهَا بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ عَلَى الْخُرُوجِ. If a person is forced to go out of the masjid, it is forgiven because he is forced. وَلَا يَقْطَعُهُ الْحَيْضُ إِنْ لَمْ تَسَعْهُ مُدَّةُ الطُّهُرِ. If a woman for example vows to fast, but then there is menses, she is forgiven. Then she has to continue. After menses, has to continue. If she say 30 days, 7 days menses, what happens? You have to continue. After menses, come back you have to come back into the masjid, continue. Because you have made the vow for the number of days. And menses is something that cannot be avoided, so it's forgiven. Wallahu a'lam bis-sawab. Is there any questions so far? MashaAllah, I ended 9:59. This is karama. 9:59. I managed to end on time. The complete chapter of fasting. But of course, the last part you have to go like an express train. No choice, huh? Is there any questions so far? Everything good? Yes.
You mentioned about kafara. For those
Yeah.
will it be upon the waris to pay with the khatam?
Yes. If he has the capacity to pay the kafara but he does not pay, then he pass away.
No, means dia tak sempat nak bayar balik.
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
pass away, so it will be upon the.
No, in this situation, then it is forgiven. That's what is mentioned by the author just now. A person, and for example, and he does any jima, then after that he pass away. So now he doesn't have any the capacity any to pay because of the time, because he passed away instant death. So in this situation, it is forgiven. But if he can pay, yani meaning of 5 years that he have passed, and he passed away, we say now you have to take any from his inheritance to pay for the kafara, because he has the capacity to pay. Unless he pass away immediate, meaning he does any that act, then he pass away. Here we say he is forgiven because he doesn't have the capacity any to do anything. Death comes, what to do?
Another question. You mentioned that we can change our intention, the sunnah intention to nazar.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry, my question is a bit because my how do I say this? It's mentioned that if you do your fard punya prayers, which is macam ada kekurangan, then you can actually use your sunnah prayer to cover up.
Yeah.
So if say a person always make the intention of nazar for your sunnah prayers,
Yeah.
how is it that you can cover up if you don't do any sunnah prayers?
Okay, you see, the thing is, if you make nadar, it becomes wajib.
Correct.
And wajib, in terms of virtues and rewards, is far much than the sunnah. So it covers the shortcomings of the fard and the prayers. If we say the sunnah prayers can cover the shortcomings of the fard prayers, what about the wajib and the prayers in the form of nadar? Can you see it? So it also covers any shortcomings of the prayers.
So the nazar prayer can still cover.
Yes. And the rewards in it much more than the sunnah prayers.
So you can change all your sunnah prayers or your whatever sunnahs ibadah.
Yeah.
Nazar.
Yeah, it must be sunnah, cannot be wajib.
Yeah.
You cannot, for example, nadar on Isha prayers, not valid. But you can do nadar on the sunnah prayers, the qabliyah prayers, the ba'diyah prayers, witir prayers, tarawih prayers, as long as it's a sunnah. You can make the intention of nadar. But the thing is, it becomes wajib upon you.
Yes.
Yeah, if you make a vow to pray even 2 rak'ah of qabliyah, now becomes wajib.
But you have to make the intention prior to doing it, right? It's not
Yes.
it won't be like
Yeah,
every
this is another thing. We have to know how to make the intention of nadar. Point number 1, you must say it out. See, nadar, you cannot in your heart. You cannot only be saying, I make nadar to pray tarawih prayers and 2 rak'ah. Not valid. This is not nadar. You have to say out the intention. That is why, for example, when it comes to i'tikaf, you enter the masjid, you say, nadartul i'tikaf fi hadha al-masjid ma dumtu fihi. Nawaitul i'tikaf al-manzur. This is the second part. Number 1, you have to say out the intention of nadar. Number 2, you have to intend what you say at the point of you doing the action. So there are 2 things. So for example, if you make nadar, for example, ba'diyatul isha, okay? So you say, for example, I vow to pray ba'diyatul isha 2 raka'at for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, now it becomes compulsory upon you. Okay, but you haven't prayed yet, right? You haven't prayed yet. When you do the takbir, when you do Allah, you have need to make the intention that this, subhanallah, this particular prayer is vow. You have to make that intention. Otherwise, it does not fulfill the nadar. It is still on your shoulders. Clear, inshallah? So that.
That's what you are saying that bila insyaAllah we have to say it's
No, not say. You have to intend in your heart that this prayer is manzura. In Arabic, and we call it manzura. We say usalli raka'atain usalli qabliyata al-isha raka'atain al-manzura lillahi ta'ala. Al-mandhura meaning the prayer that I vowed any earlier. So you have to include this in your intention. Otherwise, it does not fulfill. So all these things that we need to understand. So making a vow and to fulfill that vow, there are conditions. There are conditions. So when it comes to i'tikaf, we have to enter the masjid, then we make the vow. Wallahu a'lam. Is there any other questions? Yes.
Assalamualaikum Ustaz. There's two questions. The first question is when you mentioned about the person who had done sexual intercourse in Ramadan,
Yeah.
and he has to do kafara for 2 months, and the ruling of the fasting is invalidated
Yeah.
because he has done sexual
Yeah, he has to make qada also.
So he has qada also.
Yeah.
Right? So can you do the qada within that 2 months also, or within the kafara period, or you must do qada additional to the kafara period? So that's my first question. The second question is the general question about qada. If, for example, someone lost count of how many days he has to do qada, is there a general saying within our Salihin about of the scholars about how many days or minimum period that we need to do qada? That's all.
Okay, as for number one, you see, we have to differentiate between qada and kafara. You see, kafara is 2 months continuously. This is not inclusive any of qada. So it is 2 months continuously and 1 day. Clear? So it is not any inclusive. This is point number one. Your second question, how you calculate? A person, for example, he has been fasting for his whole life. If he has been fasting for his whole life, you calculate from the age of puberty. So normally, at what age does a person becomes puberty? So if a person knows, for example, he said, I reached puberty at the age of 12, for example. Okay, how old are you now? This person, for example, he says, I'm 60 years old. So you take 60, you minus 12. So you get 48. So 48 and you count. Every year there are 30 days in your Ramadan, times 48. That is the number of days for qada. So this is how we calculate. But if a person says, sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. Okay, what is the percentage that sometimes you fast and sometimes you don't fast? 50-50. Okay, we take 15 days and you fast, 15 days you don't fast. So if you have been doing this for 30 years, so meaning you have fasted for 15 years and not fasted for 15 years. So you have to pay for 15 years. Because if you say, sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. If it is 50-50. But if it is 1/3, sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. But sometimes I fast is 1/3. Don't fast 2/3. Then you make that estimation. But at the end of the day, what is best is that we increase and not to be exact, just to play safe. Clear, inshallah? Okay. If there is no other questions, we stop here, inshallah.